Morning, Riya. Welcome to the Your Sorority Journey podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, we're so glad to have you, a friend. Any friends of our interns are friends of ours, that's for sure. And it's also bonus points that we are sisters. So
Yeah, for yeah.
that's extra fun. Riya, I'm really excited to have you on today. Just from what I've heard from Adriana and getting to know you a little bit better, in preparation for this episode, I think it's going to be really like refreshing for a lot of our Panhellenic leaders or recruitment counselors to learn from your insight of like what it was like to be a DEI chair last year and the uh, intersection that your role has with recruitment. Obviously, you don't have that from the Panhellenic side, more the chapter side, but we really wanted to target this episode toward how recruitment counselors can really support their PNMs who might not feel like the stereotypical sorority member, right? Who may not
Yeah.
see themselves really well represented in the experience. And also for those who do have the power, the capability to implement changes that can create long lasting accessibility for more and more sisters. So I'm really excited to have you on to talk about some of those things based on your experience.
Me as well. I'm really excited to be here. I think that one thing that we should highlight as a baseline is that recruitment is all about empowering people to find their right fit. So, to find their right fit, they need an inclusive, supportive community, and it's all about how can we achieve that for everyone coming in. So it's really our job as sisters, no matter what sorority we belong to, but as the Panhellenic community as a whole, to create a platform where everyone feels comfortable enough to step up and be able to share about them, because
Mm.
different cultures and backgrounds and being the minority is a very can cause lots of anxiety and different emotions, and we need to be able to make sure to support that and make sure that everyone feels welcome within a community.
That's so well said. And I appreciate you saying it as a baseline because um, I think in recruitment, one of like the biggest barriers to us accomplishing that is the details, right? I like to say when we're
Yeah,
distracted by details, it's really hard for us to be present with people. And so when we are
exactly.
like waist deep in logistics, outfits, decor, the way we've always done things, it's really
Yeah,
hard to like see the individual like human beings who
yeah,
are eager for
exactly.
belonging, like standing right in
Yeah.
front of us.
I mean,
So I
it is
would go ahead.
definitely
Sorry.
sorry, no, oh, no worries. It is definitely like a crazy time filled with different logistics and stuff. So it's very important for like preemptive planning to go into place as far as that goes, because we all know once the fall hits, recruitment practices start again. Like we're all thrown into this pot with like not that much time, and really it gets hard to sort out all the details then.
Absolutely. And it's almost as if like when we are pushing the details for the last minute, all the like the ideals and values and things that we have like said we're about are left to the back burner.
Exactly.
Yeah, so today our episode is called Aligning Actions with Values, Addressing Privilege and Accessibility in Sorority Recruitment. Light topic for sure, Ria. So we're going to get right into it. I would love to just hear you talk a little bit more about, like, as you are thinking about that sister who is showing up, maybe feeling a little less confident or like sure of her place or where that place could potentially be for whatever reason, if it's based on lack of representation for like an economic status, a racial background, like accessibility, either like physically or mentally. What are some ways that we as a community can really rally around and like support potential new members who are trying to find a place in their community that we say we're about, but maybe not are like super well represented in?
Exactly. I mean, I think it gets tough sometimes at collegiate levels because you see different schools have varying representations of people. So it definitely makes it hard when you have less of community. But I think like a good start to all of this is starting with less of I-centered questions and more of what do you do. I know during recruitment, it's like a big emphasis to share like what the sorority about is about, and that's important like on a philanthropic level and continuing on. But we should also make sure to connect with, instead of saying, I do this XYZ and asking what you did in high school, maybe put some more centered questions around who they are as people, what do they value, maybe something special about their culture they can share. Those kinds of small, like, open-ended questions lead into more natural discussions in which you're helping them feel valued and recognized when you ask them special things about their culture, maybe something favorite about what they come from, a different tradition that
I
they
love
don't
that.
celebrate. And maybe also another big emphasis I want to put out is asking about their pronouns, which can be done in different multitudes of levels and more levels that are not so like blatant, whether introducing yourself like, hi, I'm Riya, I use she her pronouns, and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's really good. And I think you highlighted a couple really important things, right? Like it comes down as a community, whether you are in the room recruiting with someone or you're
yeah,
just like getting to know someone on a base level to like mentor them as a recruitment counselor, like asking about them instead of like spewing information about them about like where they need to go, or as a recruiter, like what they need to know about their chapter. I think it's so valuable to be like, hey, like tell me about you, because that's going to shape what they're looking for. That's going to shape the sisterhood that they're more attracted to. And so specifically for our Panhellenic ambassadors of the recruitment experience, it's going to shape how we can help connect sisters with chapters that are going to be a really good fit for them.
exactly. And I think like continuing on that beyond recruitment, we can also like make it a point to make sure that they're more inclusive, incorporative events that we carry, whether that be on bid
Ooh.
day or following, just to like make sure that they're from the gist of it welcome to the natural environment, because as it is for them, it's also a learning process for everyone. This has been like
Mm.
a new topic that's come with a strong emphasis, and it's expected that you're going to take some time to learn it, but it's really all just about putting that effort forward continuously.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if we are like saying in recruitment that we are all about like empowering people to like share their pronouns and like show up as their authentic selves and like advocate for the access that they need, all these things, and then there's like no other conversation about that until recruitment again, like we've totally done our community a disservice.
Exactly. And like I said, actions speak so much louder than words. And when they're in a platform that they don't feel comfortable, the whole point of us being sisters, no matter what chapter you belong to, is to make sure that you're their voice and you're their support. So it's our responsibility to advocate to make sure they're getting the accessibility they need.
Oh, that's so good. So I want to flip the script a little bit, because I think sometimes when we have these conversations, our chapters are, or even Panhellenic communities, like really move to like looking specifically for people to create like greater representation in their chapters or
Right.
communities, which is what we call tokenism. And so I
Yeah.
was wondering if you could like break down for us how we see tokenism in recruitment and how we can balance like seeing people for who they are, um, and like wanting to grow our representation in our chapter. Like, how can we balance that well to prevent tokenism?
Okay, that's a really, really good question. I think that when you look at someone in recruitment, and like I said, like we are looking core most at their values, that their values are going to align with our chapter, if that's going to make them and help them great potential for growth. I think you should see different accessibility, different diversity, different representation as a great addition, but not the main focus when you're looking at someone. It's like,
Yep.
this is a great factor about this person, but this is not the reason why we're taking them in. The reason why you should be taking anyone into your sorority, no matter their background, no matter anything about them, is because of their values. And that's the first
Mm,
emphasis that we need to continue. We look for the values, everything else is a great other addition that we need to continue to support. But when we look
yeah.
at anything other than values and personality and all the great things people possess, then we become misled. So we just need to continue to emphasize that in our head. That's what we look for.
Yeah,
Everything
that's
else
so
is
good.
great. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, we like miss that point so much when we like start to have these like bias conversations, right? And so I think sometimes some of our members or recruitment counselors want to like overcompensate for some of the biases that they're becoming aware of, that we all have, by the way, that we are all addressing, and we are all becoming more like cognizant of, to not like go about sorority or our lives ignorant, right? However, I do see that as like a flip of like, okay, now I'm like aware of my biases. So I'm going to make sure that I don't, by like giving maybe even giving treatment to our like sisters of color, or with physical disabilities or mental disabilities, or with different pronouns, like a little bit extra, like care, concern, and like preference, which also isn't helping us grow in being unbiased organizations. Yeah.
I think like the core of it is like it's very easy to just be like, oh my God, I'm scared of people's perceptions of me. What can I do to counteract this method? But rather like, okay, we have all sisters in the chapter, each deserve equal love, right? The point is like everyone's going to have an equal platform. So
Mm-hmm.
why not make sure that we ask the same inclusive questions, same pronoun questions, whatever those recruitment structured conversations may be, why don't we all put it on an equal platform, ask every girl, because everyone
Mm-hmm.
has some culture, something special about them, maybe a disability that they need more accommodation for, that our insight means a lot to them, or
Yeah.
asking how we can help them. So it's just asking everyone on an equal platform, making sure everyone has the opportunity, because at the core of it, if we're all equal, that is the goal in our lives, making sure everyone is having the same amount of support. So I really think that's important.
That's amazing. Um, Continuing on that thread, a conversation that you and I had over the past week in preparation for this episode was just around like no one has like the intentions to be ignorant, right? Like our chapter
Yeah.
members, like our recruitment counselors, our executive officers, even some of our like advisors, right? Like no one has the
Yeah.
intent to be ignorant. We're just like lacking some of the tools, resources, or like visibility of the ways that our ignorance is impacting marginalized communities and people. So talk to me a little bit more about like what education you think we could put forward in recruitment preparation going into the year, right? That doesn't end in recruitment preparation, but what kind of education do you think is necessary for our Panhellenic community, and then like how our Panhellenic community can translate that to the chapters?
Right. So I think that regardless of recruitment being a crazy time, we know that DEIA is something we all must focus on, and it's important to. So I think within preparation for recruitment, with recruitment practices and such, there should be some DEIA workshops implemented. And to go into more depth on this, I mean, as if we all know we have facilitators for different chapters. Specifically, I know Sigma Kappa is a great facilitator program to shout them out. But you could bring them in, and basically, what they do is they plant seeds of knowledge for you on how to make recruitment an inclusive process. But by planting seeds of knowledge, I mean, the facilitator will come up and she'll talk a lot about inclusive language, inclusive words, inclusive ways to incorporate that. And then based on that, in a whole platform or area, sisters can create their own inclusive questions or inclusive
Mm,
conversations. And that way it's a more personable experience because everyone can hone off of their own experiences and then
yeah.
creating it in a way that we build community together. So I think that's one point. I also think the pronouns thing is a very important thing to touch on again, especially that becoming more prevalent.
Yeah.
But that also, I know there's different rules and rules dating back to nationals about what can go where. But I think that's another thing to be addressed on how we introduce ourselves,
Yeah.
following how we ask people, and going on, and just making sure everyone has just another comfortable platform. So using language that makes everyone feel comfortable. Maybe practice about how to switch language, how to address tough situations that we maybe don't know about, so we're not speaking into areas that we don't have correct terminology. That's another
Totally.
important. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think there's like two sides to what I'm hearing you say. One is there's like the personal homework that you can do going into recruitment, right? There's
Right.
like
Yeah.
the education that you can do for yourself. We are going to list in the show notes a couple of amazing resources. I think everyone who steps foot on a college campus needs to read Blackballed by Lawrence Ross. The Parallel Agency also has incredible resources. I will link a couple of our previous podcast episodes. With Nikki. And we also had an amazing recruitment episode with Ebony Rose last summer that I will also link. And also, a lot of those people are amazing facilitators for you to bring on your campus to have these tough conversations to like reveal the gaps in your inclusivity in recruitment and beyond, right? Because I think recruitment is really just uh, a reflection or a magnifying glass on your membership experience at large, right? We talk about this with sisterhood. You can't fake sisterhood in recruitment. We talk about this in philanthropy. Like, you can only talk about what you've accomplished in philanthropy, what you've actually done. You can't make stuff up, right? And same thing goes for diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, right? Like, you can't make up your efforts for that week or two. You have to be living that already. And so if you're able to put some of those things into practice this summer, that is going to really set your chapter up for success, to be like, no, this is who we are, not a show or a facade that we're putting on to be politically correct, or like hopefully optimistic that we'll actually be able to do this year.
Right. And I think that like another thing that's important is knowing how much you know, because in a way everyone starts at a different level of how much they know about diversity and inclusion, and that's okay. It's a learning curve, but be courageous. When someone asks you about something and you don't know the answer, it's better to say, I don't know, can we talk about it? Can you teach me about it? And they're more than happy to have that conversation. But do not step into gray area where you don't know, because that leads down to miscommunication and troubled roads. So it's easier to be clear and concise with people about how much you know, how much you have to learn if you don't understand something. More than likely, just being clear and concise about the whole conversation and being transparent with each other will allow you for further growth, because you don't want to go into this gray area of miscommunication. That's a very dark road to lead down to. Yeah.
Riya, that is so good. I think it's actually more courageous and brave to step into spaces of like, wow, I don't know that. Especially as women, we want to be in the know. We want to feel like competent and capable, and that's great. But you will only get there by like addressing and getting real and humble with yourself about what you don't know, instead of like faking it through a conversation that could actually really hurt people, right? Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and more than likely, everyone will be able to and happy to explain it to you. Someone will know the answer. You can, and that will create like a whole open-ended conversation for maybe someone else in your chapter who doesn't necessarily know the concept or idea around something. So I think just following that, being humble and honest with yourself, and knowing that by you asking those questions and taking the effort to learn, that makes other sisters feel important and valued, that you took the time out of your day to like actually learn. It's important for us to be in the know about what affects our sisters.
Yeah. So good. Oh man, that's so good. Thanks for sharing that. We are gonna end on an often like hot topic when it comes to recruitment, and not for DEI reasons. I want to end talking about recruitment rules. We as chapter members hear about like, oh, Panhellenic is gonna fine us for leaving the door open 30 seconds too long, or Panhellenic's gonna get after us for having an extra couch in our room that we like didn't put right. Like, I think when we talk about recruitment rules, that is the lens that we are looking through them. But I believe recruitment rules are designed to create parity between groups, not create barriers for sisters to be able to access the membership experience. And so I would love to hear from you if there are any recruitment rules that you think are creating barriers, or additional additional barriers to entry that are preventing potential new members from joining. We can also extend this to that maybe are preventing chapter members from like stepping into their unique identities, and how maybe Panhellenics can reevaluate those going into recruitment this fall.
Right. I think a certain push for, I mean, I understand. Let's just start by saying I get why recruitment rules are in place, and I understand some, but I feel as if some need to be pushed aside to focus on the connection and the whole point of recruitment. But I feel as if, like, when we pick up people and continue our conversations with them, it's very formal, as it should be. It should have some level of formality. But sometimes the way that they've structured it, it can become very rigid, in the sense where that genuinity and conversationalist and chance to get to know each other is constantly bounded by all these following rules. If I accidentally say these statements, then oh my gosh, I'm gonna get fined. This is going to be a big deal. Which, when we get into the gray area of all that bread promising and stuff like that, I agree those rules should be kept the same. But when it's talking about connecting with someone, any such sort of like very rigid conversationalist rules should kind of be pushed to the side, especially when if it's giving a sister a platform to speak.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think like the connections piece is really good. I think another recruitment role that like comes to mind a lot, or just like a panelic policy, is just like the financial burden
Right.
of being a member of an organization, right? Like each chapter is going to make their own decisions as far as like what chapter dues are on top of what their national organization fees are. However, they're also paying per member Panhellenic dues, right? And so
Right.
I think the summer is a really great time for everybody to reevaluate their budgets to what are we spending money on? Is it aligning with our values? And are there opportunities for us to lower that barrier of entry, both
Yeah.
from the first step that a PNM takes in her sorority journey, from registering from Panhellenic recruitment to getting into like paying new member dues, and obviously some of those go back to Panhellenic. If every party who is capable of reevaluating those things could do so, I think that could really open a greater could open the opportunity to a whole nother group of sisters who maybe haven't felt that that is for them because of their economic background, or uh,
Exactly.
like inherent privilege, like coming into college.
Exactly. I think that was a great one. We should definitely take a step back and reevaluate all of that because there's always room for working. I mean, membership dues are there for a reason, and it's known that you do have to pay a certain amount of money to be in a sorority, but we also have to remember that not everyone has the means to do that, and we already have a crazy high college tuition wherever we go on top of
Correct.
it.
Right.
Yeah,
Before we even talk about
yeah,
sorority, people are paying for
exactly.
college. Yeah.
So both of those can be hard to manage, especially for someone who literally might be also be paying their college tuition simultaneously. And like, I don't believe that anyone should be able to be denied of their privilege to enter a sorority if they really would love to be there because it's so much potential for growth. So I think like another great thing we could be finding are scholarships, grants, and things that we
Yeah.
can tell sisters from the get-go, that things that they could apply to or have chances of doing to alleviate that pain so they
Yep.
don't have that anxiety during recruitment.
That's awesome. I think scholarships is like another
Yeah,
great thing to start implementing or considering, maybe using part of your budget to
yeah,
actually support a new member or a
yeah.
potential new member.
I think
I
like just
also,
like all the options. Sorry, I have to cut you off. Yeah.
oh no,
Yeah.
you're awesome. Yeah, laying out all the options I think is super wise. Another one that comes to mind is like physical accessibility, right? And I know a lot of communities have put into their recruitment rules like closed captioning on videos for those who might be hard of hearing to be able to read. I also think that there needs to be a push for especially some of our like older homes to like really push to make those ADA accessible.
Yeah, that
um
is another thing. Yeah.
yeah, do you want to touch on
Yeah.
that at all in terms of like physical
I just think
accessibility?
that, yeah, physical accessibility, especially with timing rules. I know there are times, but walking in and out, which is like a small thing that you would think of, but like not everyone has the means of being able to naturally just walk out, whether you might have a wheelchair, whether you might have another physical disability that makes it harder, or sensory processing disorder for different
Yeah.
noises, sounds. Like it can get very loud. So I think we just need to consider all of that because regardless of any disability, a person is still a person and they still possess great qualities. So why are we letting all of those things prevent someone from joining a sorority and having the same experiences that we do?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And then I think we also talked about just like that push for education. I think that could be something that's incorporated in recruitment roles as like an expectation that members go through a certain kind of training
Right.
before recruiting PNMs, or same thing with recruitment counselors before advising PNMs, so that they're aware of their biases going in. And can create a really like unbiased experience for their members, not just based on chapters but also like backgrounds and like previous like experiences that differentiate members going into recruitment. um I am really encouraged to get to know you.
Of course, I'm so happy that we had this chance to connect because it's awesome. Yeah.
Seriously, Ria, I you are so well spoken and like so thoughtful. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to touch on like a really hard topic, right? That you've gotten a lot of experience in, and being like the first official DEI chair for your chapter. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on as we wrap up our time together, or like leave our listeners with?
I think again to just emphasize that it is a learning process. Just jump on the ship, and we're happy to have you and happy to teach you and continue to grow together. This is what it's all about. So, learning is fun. Having more sisters that feel empowered and supportive is fun, and this is all going to be a really impactful change, not only for sororities, but as us as people and like our society and like our age right now is the future. So
Yeah,
together we're like shaping it.
that's so good. I think one thing that I talk about a lot in your sorority journey is your sorority experience is a social experience, right? Sororities are social organizations, and social not meaning like preparing us for like how to socialize with fraternity men
Right.
or like people on campus on a Friday night, right? It is how to live and act and behave and contribute to society. That's what it means to be part of a social organization. And I think DEI is such a critical component of developing for society, right?
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
way we grow, the way we address our biases, the way we have hard conversations through that gray area with like boldness, strength, and humility is equipping us to continue having those in the workplace, in our future relationships after college, when we maybe like get married and have kids, right? All those things like will penetrate into our future lives.
Of
And
course.
so
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing that up because these are really important skills that are not just relevant for the benefit of sorority, but to cultivate belonging for the rest of your life in the
Yeah.
spaces that you get to occupy.
Yeah. It's really just putting in the work now for like a beautiful and fruitful process in the future. So as long as you're on that wave, it will all work out perfectly. Yeah.
I love that. Hop on the ship. We're happy to have you.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
well, Riya, I hope you have a great week and thank you again for joining us.
You as well. Thank you for having me.